Hey guys, welcome to another installment of Ask Me Anything. So today I'm going to answer the question of how easy or how difficult is it to transition from Salesforce Classic to Lightning Experience? I get this question all the time. I know what it's like for you where you see you're using Salesforce Classic, and whether you've been using it only for a year or two or for many years, you're used to it, you're comfortable, you know exactly what you need to do and where to click. You've become an admin, you've developed the skills, the familiarity with going behind the scenes and doing stuff, answering certain questions from the users within your team, and all of a sudden, out of the blue comes this thing called Lightning Experience, and you're like, I don't know the first thing. I'm completely lost. I know what it's like, because I was there too. Guess what? Everyone was, because Lightning Experience is new. So unless your first introduction to Salesforce is on Lightning Experience, it's new. And because Lightning Experience is new anyway, even for those people who are new to Salesforce, it's new to them too. So you're not alone. There are a lot of people who can help you out. There are a lot of resources there to help you out. Either way, I'm going to answer that question, which is how easy or difficult is it to transition over from Classic to Lightning Experience? Some people are going to try and convince you that it's as easy as flipping a switch. Other people are going to try and convince you that it's this huge, monumental project that's going to easily take you 1 to 2 years to complete. What I'm going to tell you is that in a majority of scenarios, neither one applies. It's typically not as simple as turning on a switch. I'm going to dive into both of these scenarios and give you a whole lot more in today's video. But before we go any further, I have to tell you, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, you might want to do that now so that you get notifications each time I upload a new video onto YouTube. And by the way, you never know what I might post next. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to my podcast, go to iTunes, Spotify, or whatever other app you use to listen to podcasts and subscribe to The Brainy 8 Show so that you can learn best practices, hear my advice on managing Salesforce projects, your Salesforce career, Salesforce apps, and managing your Salesforce data. Now, let's move on to talk about the content that you came here to learn about. So anyone who's going to tell you that switching to Lightning is like flipping a switch, I'm going to tell you that they are candy coating it. They are 100% candy coating it. I don't care who is telling you that. They're candy coating it because that is essentially the equivalent of saying that you can switch from your rotary phone or your flip phone to go to a smartphone by just walking into a Verizon store and just buying a phone. It's that simple. Really? Is it really that simple? Well, we all know that using a smartphone involves a whole lot of setup. There are far more complex screens than there are on a rotary phone or even a flip phone. There are suddenly apps on the smartphone that are not necessarily even available on the flip phone. You might have old, outdated apps that you were using, maybe even embraced on the flip phone. They're no longer available on the smartphone. Everything on the smartphone is far more powerful, far more complex, far more integrated with all kinds of other systems, other tools. And then you're wondering, well, what's going to happen with all of your prior data? All of these options might seem a little bit overwhelming when you're switching from a flip phone over to a smartphone the first time. You don't even know how to hang up on a call when you switch from a flip phone to a smartphone. So clearly, it's not all that simple going from Classic over to Lightning Experience. Now let's take a look for a moment at the other extreme. For those of you who are convinced that moving from Classic to Lightning is this huge, monumental project that's going to take you years to accomplish, my recommendation to you is this. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it really simple. Let's start with a small pilot group within your organization to either confirm or negate that hypothesis. And by the way, for practically every Salesforce project that I get involved with, and sometimes I get involved with some very large Salesforce projects, no matter how extreme of a project, no matter how large of a budget the client has, I turn to them and I say, even if you want to build a Taj Mahal, the Taj Mahal was still built one floor at a time. So we're going to start with the foundation. We'll start with, if you need a basement, we'll start with the basement. We'll start with the first floor and we'll build upon that. So we're going to start small. The same holds true for transitioning from Salesforce Classic over to Lightning Experience. But before we even get into that, my first concern is you, the Salesforce admin. Because as a Salesforce admin, I'm assuming that you're going to find yourself struggling. You're going to find yourself struggling with maybe you're struggling with adoption. Your current users are barely logging into Salesforce now, and suddenly you're looking to take on this project, or someone is asking you to take on this project, or you feel compelled to take on this project of moving from Classic to Lightning Experience. You might have users who are maybe frustrated with the existing Salesforce configuration. Then senior management might be frustrated with the fact that the team isn't using Salesforce and they're paying for licenses. Now, by the way, some of that frustration, some of that lack of adoption might actually be justified because just perhaps you have a Frankenstein configuration on your hands where nobody knows why certain things appear on the screen. You might have different apps that you have no idea whoever approved it, why you have it, who are the users. You don't know anything about it. You might have tabs all over the place on things that nobody understands and nobody uses. You might have fields on every single screen that everybody ignores. Well, if you're in a sales, a customer service, or in a marketing role, and that's what you experience every time you log into the system that you're supposed to use for work, wouldn't you hate it too? I'm pretty sure you would. So some of it might be a little bit justified. So as an admin, think of it this way. This is an opportunity for you to relaunch Salesforce, rebrand Salesforce internally, and reintroduce the concept of Salesforce and a CRM to your entire organization. And that's pretty huge. That's a big deal now. So there are a couple of elements associated with this. First, there is the change management in terms of people. People are reluctant to change. It's scary. It's scary for you as the admin, because now you're going to be responsible for essentially a new user interface with new functionality and new features and new options, and you're a little bit concerned. Users are going to ask you questions and you have no idea how to answer them. So all of that is scary. And you might feel that you don't even have time to take it all on. Well, just imagine how scary it is for the business users. So you're going to have business users who are now, again, they might be reluctant to be using Salesforce, or even if they love using Salesforce Classic today, the new look and feel is going to be, they're going to feel lost. I'll tell you that when I first switched over, I used to be a PC Windows enthusiast. Okay, I used to love everything about Windows. The newest version of Windows, I knew more features than most people that I knew, and I loved everything about the computer. And over the course of a couple of years, I became more and more frustrated with Windows, and I reached a breaking point where I said, I'm done, and I switched over to Mac. And now, when I first switched over to Mac, that was a huge transition for me, because I was completely lost. As much as I knew about technology, as much as I knew how to use different programs and install programs and configure and maintain the operating system and apps, when it came to the Mac, the first time I opened it, I had no clue how to start an app, how to find my files, where does the print button? I don't know where's the print button. I had to sort of relearn everything. Now at the same time, okay, I had to relearn everything. Was it rocket science? No. Am I in therapy for it? No. I'm in therapy maybe for all kinds, well, maybe I should be in therapy for all kinds of other stuff, but not for this. This is not a big deal. So it's the same way for you as the admin and for your users. Now, as the admin, you're probably also wondering, switching over from Classic to Lightning Experience, well, where am I as the admin? Where am I going to turn to for support? So, for you as a Salesforce admin, the first thing that you need to do is you need to up your game. You need to start learning all of the skills that you need in order to be comfortable with Lightning experience. You need to be comfortable with Lightning experience. You need to be familiar with Lightning experience. You need to be familiar with the screens, with the options, with the new technology, the new terminology. Now, by the way, you don't need to master everything all at once. You just need to be 1 or 2 pages ahead of the end users. That's all you need to do. But you do need to do it. If you don't start taking the proactive steps in order to get there, it's never going to happen. So you, as the Salesforce admin, you need to start becoming familiar with Lightning experience. The beautiful thing is that in order to do that, Salesforce has provided this really cool tool that I'm sure you've heard of before, and it's called Trailhead. So you go to Trailhead, and there are all kinds of trails that you can do to learn Lightning experience. Now, by the way, in case you're a little lost when you go to Trailhead, I'm not really sure why you would be lost going to Trailhead. I think the user interface is pretty darn awesome. It's intuitive. It's not intimidating. I've created a trail mix. And by the way, if you're not familiar with what a trail mix is essentially like a playlist. So I've created a trail mix that I will put the link to my trail mix in the show notes for this particular episode. And it is a link to it will be a link to a trail mix that has all of the modules that from Trailhead that I think you need to learn, you need to master in order to gain the confidence and the knowledge and the expertise to master Lightning experience as a Salesforce admin. So that part of it is easy. It's out there. It's completely free. You do it on your own time, at your own place. You do it whenever you want, but you need to do it. Okay? Trailhead. Now, while you are building your own personal skills, your knowledge, your comfort, your familiarity in all things regarding Lightning experience, you need to take a look. First, we're going to take a look at your org in terms of your existing Salesforce configuration. So we're going to first look on the technical side. On the technical side, there are a couple of elements that we need to consider. The first thing that we need to consider is compatibility. What is it that you currently have in your existing Salesforce configuration that is or is not compatible with Lightning experience? What will work and what will not work? Then we need to take a look at the opportunities that you have to improve the user interface for your users and get rid of the clutter and amputate the garbage. Just get rid of the crap, because I guarantee that when you look with a fresh set of eyes, you will identify a lot of junk that you can just get rid of from your org. And this is a fantastic opportunity to do that. Let's take a deeper look into the compatibility issues. What do I mean by compatibility? What will work and what will not work? So you need to identify whether or not your Visualforce, your integrations, your hard-coded URLs, the apps that you have, you need to know whether or not those will work once you turn on Lightning experience. Now, the beautiful thing is Salesforce provides you tools to identify and manage and mitigate this stuff. Salesforce provides a Lightning readiness report and all kinds of other tools and resources to guide you through to identify what is compatible and what is not. Depending on your organization's configuration, on your organization's apps, on the customizations that you have going on, this could be a total slam dunk. You might find that everything is totally compatible from a technical perspective. Everything is compatible. Nothing will technically break by turning on Lightning experience. Alternatively, you might find out that it could be a project, and that project could last a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It should not last a couple of years. It should not. It should last, if anything, a couple of weeks or a couple of months. This should not be a monumental project. Now, earlier I talked about opportunities to improve the user interface, to get rid of the clutter, and to amputate the garbage. How are you going to do that? Well, for any Salesforce project, I always say you need to focus on the business processes. And you might be wondering, what the heck do business processes have to do with switching from Classic to Lightning Experience? The business process is everything. If you are not familiar with the core business processes that your organization is utilizing in order to manage those processes in Salesforce, then you're of no help to your own organization. You have zero job security, by the way, if you're not familiar with those business processes. By becoming familiar with those business processes, it will help you develop the framework, the skeleton, to understand the data, what type of data schema you need to have. It will help you understand who the users are, what pieces of information they need regarding leads, regarding contacts, regarding accounts, regarding opportunities, regarding cases, regarding marketing campaigns, regarding activities. It will help you understand the flow of information from one group within your organization to another group, what other external systems they are using, why they are using them, in what scenarios they use them, what pieces of information need to go from Salesforce to the other systems or from the other systems back into Salesforce. It will also help you understand all of the key metrics that your organization cares about in order to determine success or failure. In a nutshell, by having a deep understanding of your organization's business processes, you will be able to answer the why to every question. That will put the appropriate framework for you as the Salesforce admin to understand when someone says, oh, can you just put a checkbox, and the checkbox should be called, dormant or something, and just put it as a checkbox. You need to understand why that is and what it is that they're trying to do about it. Because by asking the appropriate questions, you're then going to turn back to them and say, well, don't you need to know why they were considered dormant, what date they were considered dormant, who's the one who flagged them as dormant? Maybe you need to know all those things. If I just listen to you and just create a checkbox just because we've always had a checkbox, well, you're never going to have those pieces of information. So you need to understand the business processes that your organization is utilizing that relates to the data that's going into Salesforce. So first, get an understanding of the business processes. Then, once you understand the business processes, you can take a fresh look at your data schema. You can start to look at all of the different objects that you have in Salesforce. Are those objects properly associated to other objects the way that they are supposed to be based on the business processes and the way you now understand that the data relates to each other? I can't tell you how many times I have seen many custom objects in Salesforce orgs. I've seen many custom objects that replicate the idea of contacts. So someone will say, oh yeah, we need to have another tab and we need to call it employees or vendors, and it should be contacts. Like, what? What are you doing? No, that's not supposed to be like that. By asking the questions about the business process, then you can look at the configuration you have within Salesforce and things will make sense. The good, bad, and the ugly will appear itself to you. You will now have a deep understanding. You'll know who to turn to. You'll know what type of records are in there, how they're used, why they're used, and then you can turn to your organization with ideas, with suggestions on how to further improve the current data schema. This opportunity of transitioning this milestone of transitioning from Classic to Lightning Experience is a phenomenal opportunity for you as the Salesforce admin to demonstrate the role that you have within the organization, the influence that you have within the organization that actually goes far beyond Salesforce, to having a huge influence on streamlining and simplifying the business processes throughout your organization. So you're going to be looking at the data schema. You're going to be looking at all of the objects. Once you look at that, you're then going to go a layer deeper. You're going to start looking at all of the fields on all of the objects. What fields do they need on the screen based on your understanding of the business process, that when a lead comes in, here are the pieces of information that we ask of those leads, of those prospects, and here are the pieces of information that we gather in order to qualify those prospects or disqualify them. Well, now you know what pieces of information they need on the screens related to leads and related to contacts. And then when you take a look at the screen and you see that there are 50 or 100 or God knows how many additional fields that have nothing to do with any of the stuff that you just heard from talking about the business processes, you know where you can start taking an axe or scissors or a chainsaw or whatever you want and start getting rid of that crap. Okay? So you're going to look first at the objects, and then you're going to look at the fields. Then you're going to start reviewing all of the apps that you have and start taking inventory. Who's using them? Why are they using them? Maybe you have different apps. I can't tell you how many times I've seen in organizations where in the same organization, multiple apps that do the exact same thing. Because Joe thought that this tool would be really good to do, let's say, forms in Salesforce, and Susan really liked this other tool because that's what she used at her prior place of employment. Therefore, the organization has two different tools that do almost the exact same thing, and we're paying for licenses of two different tools unnecessarily. That's nuts. Completely nuts. So you need to start taking a look at the apps that you have within the organization to identify what do you need and what don't you need. Again, if you don't know the business processes, you can't make a decent recommendation in terms of what apps are useful, what apps are not useful, to better improve the business processes within the organization. Then you need to take a look at the visibility. Once you understand the business processes, you also know who needs to see what pieces of information, who should be able to see certain records, who should not be able to see certain records. So now you'll have an understanding of, for example, the people in marketing don't need to see the customer service tickets that are going on relating to problems with delivery of products. You're not going to know that if you don't know the business processes. So you need to review the visibility of what you have within the organization in terms of who can see what. As I mentioned earlier, even if within your organization everyone wants to do the Taj Mahal, or you want to do the Taj Mahal, I tell you, start small. Start with a small pilot group. Always start small. By starting small, first of all, it's not going to feel overwhelming. Secondly, whatever issues, whatever concerns, whatever hesitations, whatever frustrations, it's all going to be downsized by starting small. Pilot group, it's totally up to you in terms of what the size of that pilot group should be. It's okay if it's 5, 10, 15, 20 people. That's totally cool. Start with a small pilot group. It should not be overwhelming, and you should be able to roll out Salesforce Lightning experience to that pilot group without any pain, without lots of drama. You should be able to do it within a couple of weeks. You might even surprise yourself, and you'll find that from the time you start on the initiative until you roll it out, maybe it's a week and a half later. Give it a whirl. So, and by the way, you can roll out Lightning experience to just a handful of people within your organization without having to do this large rollout to everyone. So it's not an all or nothing type of a feature. You can open up Lightning experience just for a handful of people. Now, if you're still feeling overwhelmed and you're struggling with moving from Classic to Lightning, even if it's just for a small pilot group within your organization, you can feel free to reach out to me. Look, as a Salesforce consultant, this is precisely what I do for a living. I help companies to unlock the power of Salesforce in order to streamline and simplify and automate their internal operations. That's what it's all about. Moving over from Classic to Lightning experience is a fantastic opportunity for you to tap into an upgraded platform, an easier user interface with far more options to customize your screens based on the specific needs of groups within your organization. It should be not only a pleasant, it should be a transition not only on a technology perspective, as far as everyone's operating rhythm within the organization, they should start to love Salesforce and love the business processes that they're working with because they are painless. So you need to look for opportunities to eliminate the pain, bring a little bit of joy to the people that you're working with. And Salesforce is simply the tool, and Lightning Experience is the tool that you are using in order to introduce these improvements to the organization and everyone that you work with. Anyway, that's it for now. If you have any thoughts on this particular topic, go ahead and leave me a note down below or shoot me a note privately. It's all good. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.